Welcome back to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack a massive hidden vulnerability in Europe's digital infrastructure. We're talking about an invisible tether that connects European governments, businesses, and citizens straight back to Washington. We're going to look at exactly how this dependency works, from the bare metal hardware all the way up to the software, and explore the specific legal statutes that make true data privacy incredibly complicated. So, there's this comforting, widely held belief across the continent, the idea that just because you store your data on a server physically located in Europe, that somehow guarantees European sovereignty over that data. But, as we're about to discover, that is fundamentally an illusion. We've got a fascinating roadmap for today. We'll start with this illusion of the sovereign cloud, map out those hardware and software chains, dive into the US legal hooks, look at what happens when the digital plug actually gets pulled, and wrap up with an impossible compliance collision. All right, Section 1, the illusion of sovereignty. Let's peel back the layers on this sovereign cloud myth. The crucial thing to understand here is that physical geography just doesn't dictate legal reality anymore. You could build the most state-of-the-art server vault imaginable in Frankfurt, Amsterdam, or Paris. But listen, if the company that owns and operates that infrastructure is headquartered in the United States, that server is not immune to U.S. laws. Legal jurisdiction follows the corporation, not the GPS coordinates on a map. And researchers at the Klingendel Institute hit the nail on the head. They call these heavily marketed localized data storage solutions digital sovereignty washing. Sure, hyperscalers will promise you local data storage and compliance guardrails, but because they run on proprietary closed-source software, they completely fail to deliver genuine European autonomy. You're effectively renting a super secure lockbox, but someone else holds a master key. Moving into Section 2, hardware and software chains. To really grasp how deep this goes, we need to look at the market dependencies that create this vulnerability in the first place. The market numbers here are honestly jarring. Just 3 U.S. companies, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud, control over 72% of the European cloud market. Meanwhile, the combined share of all EU providers has shrunk to barely 13%. That means the vast majority of Europe's digital lifeblood sits on infrastructure entirely owned by American firms. But it's not just the cloud data center itself. Europe's entire digital stack is dominated by foreign tech. An EU-based data center doesn't just use American cloud architecture. It runs on operating systems where Windows holds 73% of the desktop market. It protects its networks with US and Israeli cybersecurity tools, and it trains its models on AI chips designed overwhelmingly by US firms. Basically, European firms are constantly innovating within ecosystems strictly defined and controlled by outside players. So, what does this actually mean for the data? That brings us to Section 3, the U.S. legal hooks. Because of this massive hardware and software reliance, specific legal statutes use this market dominance as a backdoor. The primary one is the U.S. Cloud Act of 2018. It explicitly requires U.S. cloud providers to hand over stored data when compelled by U.S. authorities. So if the parent company is sitting in Seattle, the law follows that company all the way to its data center in Germany. Before this act, countries had to use mutual legal assistance treaties, which required actual judicial review in Europe. The Cloud Act bypasses that entirely. U.S. authorities can compel production directly. And worse, this often comes with a non-disclosure, gag order. That means the cloud provider is legally forbidden from even telling the European client that their data was handed over. Providers can try to fight it, but the burden of proof is on them, and in practice, it's an incredible uphill battle. And while the Cloud Act is mostly for law enforcement, FISA Section 702 is the intelligence route. It was actually expanded in 2024 to authorize U.S. intelligence agencies to compel communications data from a massive range of service providers under national security justifications, and they can do this without an individual warrant for each target. It's a remarkably broad net, and because European data centers won on U.S. infrastructure, European data can very easily get caught in it. Now for Section 4, pulling the digital plug. We've talked about data being copied or handed over, but what happens when the U.S. leverages this dependency to actively apply geopolitical sanctions? If the U.S. government applies sanctions to an entity in the EU, U.S. businesses can literally be compelled to discontinue services completely. This is not a hypothetical. When the Amsterdam Trade Bank was sanctioned in 2022, and when the U.S. targeted the International Criminal Court in 2025, they were instantly locked out of basic software like Outlook and their cloud infrastructure. U.S. platforms cut them off to comply with Washington. It proves that digital continuity can just be disrupted in seconds. And adding major fuel to the fire is the newly passed Remote Access Security Act, or RASA, from January 2026. This expands U.S. export controls directly into the cloud. The U.S. government can now regulate remote access to computing resources, specifically targeting AI training on U.S.-designed chips housed abroad. Literally, accessing cloud computing is now treated as a restricted export, meaning the U.S. could legally revoke a European company's access to the hardware sitting inside an EU data center at a moment's notice. Which leads us to Section 5, the compliance collision. Let's see how all of these overlapping software, hardware, and legal dependencies build into an absolute nightmare for European IT and legal professionals. We have arrived at the ultimate catch-22. On one side, the U.S. Cloud Act demands that an American provider must produce the data or face severe penalties. But on the exact opposite side, the EU Data Act and GDPR explicitly prohibit using a foreign court order to transfer European data. This creates an impossible double bind. A U.S. provider operating in Europe simply cannot satisfy both laws at the same time. Complying with one explicitly means breaking the other. So if you're a European hospital, a government agency, or a business using these clouds, you're operating in this wild legal gray zone, trusting providers who are constantly caught in a zero-sum game of international jurisdiction. It reminds us of a really harsh truth. Regulations are only as strong as the physical and architectural reality of the technology they govern. You can write all the data protection laws you want, but if the underlying servers, software, and AI chips are ultimately controlled by a foreign power with conflicting laws, those protections can be entirely bypassed. So I want to leave you with this final thought today. As long as this invisible tether of foreign jurisdiction remains firmly attached to Europe's critical infrastructure, from the US AI chips all the way to the hyperscaler cloud architecture, can any data stored on a foreign-owned cloud ever truly be considered sovereign? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I hope this gives you a completely new lens on the reality of our digital world.